Hello and welcome to the 2017-2018 Captain's Webinar for the Kennesaw State Intramural Sports Program. In this webinar, we're going to go over some staff introductions, what it looks like to be a captain for our program and what your responsibilities are, how to navigate our website and what divisions and scheduling looks like, game facilities and parking, roster management and guidelines for the participants that play, some special game situations that may arise, and our policies and procedures for sportsmanship, ejections, and playoffs. I am DJ Doss. I'm the Senior Coordinator for Intramural Sports here at Kennesaw State. Crystal Durham is our second-year Graduate Assistant of Intramural Sports, and together we make up the administrative staff for the program. The rest of our staff is made up entirely of student staff. Our sport directors are supervisors that help lead our trainings for our officials. Our supervisors are your point people out at the fields. As you can see, they'll be wearing those black polos with the gold stripe. They will be out there to help with any questions you have, any situations that arise with your team. They're your go-to. And all of our officials and scorekeepers are also peers to all of our teams. They are students at the university. Listed are some of the responsibilities here that you'll have as a captain. You can also find these in our handbook on IM leagues. But some of the bigger points are you need to be knowledgeable of our sport rules and our procedures. You need to read all the communications that we send from our staff. That can be via email. We can also give you a call here and there. You want to track and monitor your team roster and the eligibility that's up there on IM leagues and make sure everything's good to go. And then you want to communicate with your team members before and after you get to the game site. The last piece is that you're our point of contact out the field. So if there's any issues with the teams, anything that we need to take care of out there in terms of changes to the schedule or sportsmanship, you're going to be the person that our supervisors are going to be looking towards to help with those situations. Some of the changes for the program this year are our team creation process, the team fees and forfeit fees, the roster locks, and the ringers. So our team creation now you'll see, and we'll talk about in a bit, but teams are now going to go straight to the wait list, and then they'll be removed from the wait list once you meet the minimum required number of players, and that happens automatically as long as you auto-select your division and you list your preferences correctly. We are looking at possibly having team fees charged for bowling and golf in the spring, and we also have forfeit fees. They will be assessed now hopefully at the end of the season instead of at the very end of the semester, so that we can keep up with that a little bit more accurately. Our roster lock is going to help with the team players that are trying to join right there at playoffs. So you can join the team all the way up until this roster lock deadline. You don't have to have played in a game now to be able to play in playoffs. We'll talk about that a little later as well. And the final piece is our ringers. There is a limit to ringers, but that number has changed based on the size of the team that is on the field. Our grace period, again, teams with no representatives out at the field, that is an automatic forfeit. That's something that we put into place in the spring. Forfeit deposits now are forfeit fees instead, and they are charged through the student banner account, so the captain will get that fee. The roster caps are still in place, and so that is now a maximum that can be put on the team's roster. That is based completely on the number of players that can be on the field. So most of the time that's 2 times the number of players that you can have on the field for your team. And lastly, our team schedules and playoffs changed last year. We still have that in place to where it's typically going to be 4 teams per division. You're going to play 3 regular season games, and then you're going to be guaranteed a playoff game so long as you meet our requirements. So when you're navigating IM leagues, which is our main page and our website for intramural sports and how we schedule teams, you'll see right there towards the top of the home page there are 2 links in maroon, the default form and the spectator request. You can also find them under the rules and IM handbook, so know that they're both right there and they're resources for you and for your team members. The rules and IM handbook, as you can see with the arrow towards the left side of the screen, that's where all of our information for any of our sports should be listed, and everything is kept up to date there. Also, as it relates to forfeits and defaults and understanding whether you're going to get charged a fee towards the end of the sport or not, there's a forfeit default column next to your team in the division standings on the left side of the screen. And so when you look under the F/D column, if there's a 1 in the F, that means that you got a forfeit, And if there's a 1 or a 2 in the default column, that means that you have a default. For the forfeits, if you have a 1 or more listed there, your team is set to be charged a forfeit fee. And if there's more than one default, your team is also set to be charged a forfeit fee. So make sure you're keeping up with that and reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns. As a captain on your team page, you can see that there are pending requests towards the top of the page. So if your team does not auto-approve members, these requests will show up towards the top, and you can view them and add them. And so that's a step that a lot of times gets missed. The other piece is under team options towards the left there, under that arrow. In that drop-down box, you have a lot of different options as a team captain, including changing your team name and changing your team color. So any kind of questions you have about making some adjustments to your team on the website, that can typically be done under that team options box. This is a list of our facility locations. Parking will be discussed on the next screen, but these are also listed on IM Leagues, so make sure you're checking your score sheet to see which site you're going to play at. And then when you look at the sites in IM Leagues, there's also a Google map that's listed that actually shows you where it's at on a map. So it's really helpful to check out IM Leagues and see where the facilities are. These are our 5 on-campus locations, but we also do have off-site games played for certain sports such as bowling and golf. For parking at our game sites on campus, the Buddy Siegel SRAC, the Marietta Recreation Wellness Center, and the Marietta Fields, you're going to need to make sure that you have the correct parking pass. If you need more information about anything that relates to parking on campus for those 3 sites, check out the parking.kennesaw.edu website. For any games at the sports park, so that's the Owl's Nest or the Perch, which is kind of near the Fifth Third Bank Stadium. You can see the highlighted areas are in red that you are allowed to park. You don't have to have a parking pass, but you do need to park in one of these red shaded areas. Teams are now created, and when you create your team, it's going to go straight to the wait list. And as I said earlier, you're going to be able to come off of the wait list once you meet that minimum required number of players. So as long as you auto rank your division preferences, the ones that you place up there, it's going to go in order of which one's not full. So if your first rank is not full as a division, you're going to be automatically moved there. If your first 3 ranks are full, but the 4th one's not, it's going to move you to the 4th. You're also able to go in and move your team around as necessary. So if you have any issues or concerns with that, make sure you shoot us an email around the time that your team gets moved. If you don't select a division, or if you don't select many divisions and then they end up being full by the time you meet the minimum requirement, you're going to stay on the wait list. So you'll be able to move yourself off the wait list so long as you're at the minimum required players. Divisions are listed by location and time. So if it says MC2 6:30 p, that means that the games are going to be scheduled on the Marietta campus on Tuesdays at 6:30 p.m. during the regular season and not necessarily during playoffs. There are some exceptions to the regularly scheduled games during regular season because of facility schedules and holidays. So an example of this would be for Labor Day, we're going to move those Monday games from that holiday over to that Friday. So make sure you're checking our correspondence on that. And again, we intend to post our schedules for the regular season by 5 o'clock on the Friday that registration closes. Usually at the latest, they're out by that Saturday morning. Roster caps, again, they're listed in the sport page. You'll be able to see them right there next to the minimum and maximum on the IM Leagues page, and it's also listed in our rules document. But that's the max total of players that you can have on your roster. Players have to be added up until that roster lock date. Once they get to that roster lock date, the roster is set and you can't add more players after that date. Typically for each phase, that's going to be the first day of playoff games right there at the end of the day about 5 o'clock, so that once we start playoff games, we can't add people after that point to the roster. But what's a little bit different, like I said earlier, you don't have to have played in a game any longer to be able to play in playoffs. You just need to be on the roster. The only time that you're going to have some kind of gameplay requirement is once we get to the championship game. When we get to that point, your players are going to have played in a game to be eligible to play in the championship game. Once a player is checked in for a game, they are part of that team and they can't be dropped, nor can they switch their teams. When players check in, they need to be able to show a valid form of ID. That is no longer just your KSU ID. You can also use a government-issued form of ID, so that can be a driver's license, a passport, anything that we consider government-issued. What that's not is a credit card that's got a picture on it or a different school's ID. The only different school that will accept an ID for is Georgia Highlands College. Players should be on the printed roster and have taken the quiz to be able to play. We will look up players on site on the IM League site, but you're going to need to pull that up for us and show us. And the players got to be listed on that roster so that we can write in all the information required. Help us a little bit by minimizing it, and the less time that we spend on checking players on the roster, the quicker you're going to be able to get to play. You need to have the minimum required number of players checked in to be able to start. If it's not met at game time, we start our grace period, and we'll show the table in a bit. The grace period is something that's going to try to help us avoid a forfeit in that situation. Another thing that will help you out is arriving about 10 to 15 minutes early. We also allow teams to have one coach that is not on the roster and checked in. They don't have any abilities during the game, and they are the responsibility of the captain, so that should be your only person that's not a player that's in your bench area. Use the free agent tool. We have free agents sign up and create profiles, and so if you need some extra players or need some bench players, you can find our free agents listed towards the left side. There's a link for all of the free agents in the league that you're in, so check those out if you're looking for a few extra players to kind of give you a rest, or if you need some players to be able to meet the minimum requirements. To be eligible is pretty straightforward. Students need to have at least 1 credit hour, be enrolled in at least 1 credit hour, and they need to have paid the sports and recreation fee. They can also opt into that membership as well using our website. Eligibility ends though when you're no longer taking classes, so if you're not enrolled in a credit hour, you're not eligible to participate in intramurals anymore. Faculty and staff, pretty much the same thing. You have to be currently employed, and you also have to have a Kennesaw or a combo faculty staff membership with the Sports and Recreation Department. This is a list of some ineligible participants that are typically listed as such. Most of the time when you see these folks, they're going to be listed as suspended, but folks like students taking a semester off or intensive English program students are going to be listed as ineligible instead of suspended, and so they can contact us if they have any questions. So this is a list of the type of ringers that we have for varsity athletes who are listed on a varsity roster during that academic year. At any college, they are considered not eligible for their same or corresponding sport. Same thing for professional athletes. Matt Ryan can't come out and play with your team for flag football, but would be eligible to play in basketball. For former varsity athletes and club sport members, they are eligible, but we have a certain cap for them, which we'll discuss on the next page. Former varsity athletes are anyone that was listed on a varsity roster at any point within the past 3 academic years, but not the current academic year. Club sport members are anybody that is currently listed on OrgSync at the time of the game. So how many ringers can you have on a team? It now depends on the sport. It used to be 3. Now it is the total number of your players that can be on a playing surface at one time. It is equal to or less than half of that. So an example would be softball allows 10 players on the field. That means that the maximum ringer total on the roster is 5. For our fraternity and sorority teams, you have to be listed on the roster for the organization if you're a part of the team. The fraternity and sorority, as well as the participants, must also be in good standing with the Office of Fraternity and Sorority Life. And any organization not in good standing cannot play using name or letters to be part of the team. And you also can't wear letters out during play, and this also includes spectators. All participants can be on one single gender team and one co-rec team. Again, the first team rule, whichever team you sign in with first is your team. The only time that we'll help teams or players move from team to team is with very extenuating circumstances. The use of an ineligible participant, that warrants a forfeit, so the forfeit fee will apply. And this includes too many or ineligible ringers that are listed on the team. If you have any questions or concerns about participants, always feel free to send us an email, give us a call, and we'll help clarify any situations that might come up with your team. If you know that you're not going to be able to play a game, you can complete a default form to avoid a forfeit. You have to complete that form by 12 p.m. the day of the game, but it can be completed further in advance if you know that you're not going to be able to make it. We help you a little bit with the defaults as well by giving you a higher sportsmanship rating than you would receive for forfeits. Your team will stay in the league, and you will not receive a forfeit fee for the first default. So the forfeit situations that could come up would be that you don't meet the minimum requirement after the grace period is over, if your team's ejected due to sportsmanship, you use ineligible players, you default 2 or more times, or if your team drops after the schedule is posted, and now playoff games are going to be included with forfeit fees. So anytime that we have a forfeit situation, it'll be listed in IM leagues, and the fee is going to get charged to the captain's banner account, and that's going to be $40 for all of our league sports, $20 for team tournaments, and $10 for individual dual sports. Our grace period is something that helps us avoid having forfeits right at game time. So now you have 10 minutes right after game time to meet that minimum requirement, and if you don't meet it by that 10-minute point, then we rule a forfeit. So you can see the chart here with the penalties, including the sportsmanship ratings. It'll be different. You can also find that out at the game site and in our handbook. Point to notice right there at the bottom, tournament sports that we have, they will not utilize the grace period, and this also will include our individual dual sports. If you win or lose by default, the scores are listed in the intramural handbook as what we'll post for the game card. Your sportsmanship scores are the winning team is going to get a 4, the defaulting team is going to get a 3.33, and if it's a forfeiting team, they'll get a 2.33. So the sportsmanship rating for the defaulting team is enough to make it into playoffs without any kind of repercussion. The 2.33 is just under what you need to get in while being on probation for playoffs. For weather, anytime the weather situations come up, we'll make all of our announcements on IM leagues. Most of the time we try to wait till after office hours, so we're not really going to know in the office. It's just going to depend on what the radar looks like. And the games that are in progress, it depends on what point we're at in the game and what kind of game it is in terms of if it's regular season or playoffs, about if it will be able to get rescheduled. This is our sportsmanship scale, so it's pretty straightforward at this point. About our A's are in one bracket, B's, C's, and then D's and F's are in different brackets, and that's all in relation to the number of sportsmanship infractions that the team receives. Administrative fouls, this is worth noting as well, are not considered sportsmanship infractions. So again, you can see where each one falls on the scale, and these are also in the handbook and out at the game site. Behavior before, during, and after games is included in these ratings, and one person can have a huge effect. As you could see, one sportsmanship infraction already knocks you down one bracket, and 2 can knock you down 2, and one person can have 2 sportsmanship infractions. So you want to make sure you know who's on your team, and you're helping kind of keep them under control and keep the sportsmanship high from the team. This is a very big part for us because it's vital to the success of our program and all the contests that we run. The alcohol and tobacco policy is pretty straightforward. No tobacco is allowed to be used. That includes smokeless tobacco, cigarettes, cigars, e-cigs, anything that looks like smoking. We've been told to remove from the facility, so make sure you're not using tobacco. Don't bring tobacco. Also, don't bring alcohol, and also don't use alcohol before you come to an event. So if you are intoxicated or if we can smell the alcohol, we are going to ask you to leave the facility. So long story short with this slide, don't use it, don't bring it, and we'll be good to go. For ejections, any kind of ejection that we have, those players will be suspended immediately. Anything that relates to threatening or actually physically striking or abusing an intramural sports staff member is immediately suspended and removed from all participation for at least a year, and they're going to be referred to the Department of Student Conduct and Academic Integrity. Ejections count as 2 sportsmanship infractions, so you'll drop down to automatically to that C bracket at best, and the sanctions for ejections don't start until after they meet with us. All of our teams are eligible to make it to playoffs so long as they don't forfeit more than once, and as long as the sportsmanship average is above 3. So our online draw for playoffs, it'll start on that Saturday typically following the end of the regular season. You'll be able to see your seeding order by that Friday. That's going to be based on your record, your sportsmanship average, and then your point differential in that order. Any player that's on the roster, again, after that roster lock, is going to be eligible to play, so they don't have to have checked in for a game anymore. A team that enters playoffs between a 3.0 and a 3.33 with sportsmanship is now going to be able to join, but is going to be placed on probation for playoffs. In playoff games, if you receive a rating that is lower than 3.0, if it's 3.0 or lower, you're going to be removed from the game and from the rest of the playoffs. Teams that are on probation or forfeit any games after receiving a sportsmanship infraction, those folks are going to be removed. Those teams are going to be removed, and the playoffs will proceed with the team that they were playing. A team receiving below a 1.0 in a playoff game is subject to further disciplinary actions, particularly if they are the losing team in those situations as well. Again, make sure that updates are made on IM Leagues for your account. Make sure that your email is good to go, your cell phone number is good to go so that we can communicate with you easily, because that's our primary way of reaching out to you about cancellations, any changes to your games, and any opportunities we might have that have come up with the program. So our league sport offerings this year, again, we're going to have individual dual sports this year, so you can see tennis, badminton, racquetball, and disc golf. If you sign up for those, we're going to schedule games in IM Leagues, but you're actually going to go in and set your own day and time and location for those games during the regular season with your opponent. So you're going to reach out to them and actually schedule the games on your own. Our fall Phase 1 leagues are 7v7 flag football, ultimate frisbee, sand volleyball, and tennis. And you can see the rest of our leagues this year. The various tournaments will be played throughout the years include wiffle ball, volleyball, dodgeball, all kinds of different sports that we'll have available for you as well, and you'll be able to see in IM Leagues. And finally, if you need to contact us, the best way is going to be using email at imsports@kennesaw.edu. You can also drop by the Owl's Nest. We're in Office 105. We have offices on the Marietta campus. We have hours down there on Tuesdays and Fridays typically, and you can drop by and see us. And you can also give us a call at 470-578-7927. Thank you for your time, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us using any of these contact methods.